pleased to welcome Mrs Donelan, the University's Minister, and MP for Chippenham. Hello, Michelle.
Good evening, Nick.
Well, thanks very much for joining me. I do appreciate it at the weekend at this early evening hour. Now, very much related to your brief, we're in a kind of seemingly strange world where a student at a school the Times have led with this week was penalised effectively for simply entering into a debate with a peer of the realm about something that should be very simple, the transgender debate. She argued effectively, she was making the point very politely in the debate that a woman is an adult female human, and she came under actually some what sounded like very intimidating behaviour by some of her contemporary students. But more worryingly, the school seemed to isolate her from other students and not, if you like, put a ring of protection around her and encourage open-minded thinking, challenge and debate in a school amongst sixth formers. Nadeem Sahawi, your Secretary of State for Education and your boss, he's been very clear about this in what he said. He said he was slightly shocked that he felt the school felt it was appropriate for the school to act in this way. My question to you is, having had time to reflect on this, what can the government actually do to sort of stop this situation happening in schools where a perfectly legitimate discussion was happening and that student is isolated?
Yeah, well, Nick, I share the outrage on this. I too read the Times article and the reports, and from what I've read, this is completely unacceptable. I would urge the girl to come forward and the teacher who's been an anonymous whistleblower in another article to come forward. Then action can be taken and this can be investigated. To the best of my knowledge, that hasn't happened yet. But of course, this type of incident should not be happening, because the first responsibility of a school is, in fact, to keep pupils safe. And by all accounts, reading this story, that doesn't seem to be what's happened to this young girl who, according to the story, has had to leave the school and is now being educated at home, which is absolutely awful. Now, we are taking action to assist teachers in these kind of scenarios. I think it is fair to say that they aren't as used to dealing with these kind of scenarios as they have been other issues that might be quite tricky to navigate through. And we want to support them and give them the tools and the information as to how to deal with these situations. And that's why we are developing robust and thorough guidance. And we're doing that working very closely with the Attorney General so that we're getting this right legally. We're working with the Equality and Human Rights Commission so that it will work in practice. And we're also working with medical experts to make sure that we got it right from that front, because we do appreciate that this is a difficult situation for teachers to deal with, but we cannot have stories like this ever being the reality for any young people studying here in the UK.
In some senses, you're kind of hoisted by your own petard in a way, because schools have a lot of freedom. They are encouraged to the professionals should lead. Will we ever get to a state, though, because this debate seems to be getting out of hand? You've effectively stifled and criticised debate in a school. We're getting used, sadly, to seeing this intolerance of alternative ideas in universities. Ultimately, you can only issue guidance. Is that going to be enough, do you think?
Well, no, this is a guidance that schools will be having to adhere to, and we'll be coming forward with that in the coming weeks. So I say just hang on for a second on that one. But please trust that we get the importance of this issue and the importance of ensuring that pupils are not put in the position that this young pupil was, according to the article. You mentioned universities, though. I'm taking forward a piece of legislation, the Freedom of Speech Bill, which will give our legislation the teeth needed to ensure that our campuses are places of free speech and that we have stopped this chilling culture that we've been seeing where lecturers and students have been afraid to speak up. I mean, I would ask you, how are we possibly ever going to create the next generation of innovators that push the boundaries, that challenge the status quo, that enable us to modernise, unless we allow free speech and we allow people to be critical thinkers?
Is free speech, in your opinion, seriously under threat in universities?
I believe, having spoken to numerous lecturers and students and seeing a range of evidence and studies, it is. And that's why this government is taking action. That's why we're honouring our manifesto pledge. And we are creating a new individual that will be a director responsible for free speech and academic freedom, who will sit within the regulator of universities and will be able to put sanctions, not just on universities, but also student unions. And universities will have a duty not just to protect free speech, but I think really importantly, to also promote free speech.
Two quick things I'd like to get through, if I may. Just one more very much under your brief. There's been a lot of talk, both in a way connected issues, the cost of living and the obesity crisis that, you know, I for one have been banging on about decades. But many of the core root causes of this, a lot of people are putting back to the fact that in schools we gave up on teaching people to cook. We gave up on the value of what in my day was called domestic science. And of course, today school children go on to university and go on to become the full adults. Should we be doing more to educate at school and indeed perhaps offer that education first-year university students on how to eat better and healthier?
So I think that this is something that does need addressing, and we are addressing it. In the Levelling Up paper that was published relatively recently, we did address this issue. In fact, we are now going to ensure that pupils leave school knowing how to cook a range of different meals, because we recognise that they need those basic skills, and that is part of tackling.
Can I just clarify? Is that actually introducing lessons again, a compulsory course, or maybe it can't be compulsory? But how would that materialise? It is making sure
that the lessons that are there are actually enabling pupils to then leave school, so that everybody has the guarantee that they'll leave school knowing how to cook those basic recipes. Now, let's be honest, that's not going to solve the obesity crisis.
Sure.
But it will help. And it's one of the things that we're doing as a government. We've also, in October, for instance, shops won't be able to put those things like chocolate bars by the tills to entice people. So that's another little measure that we're doing. We have put on hold on some of the stuff because obviously we're in a global fight against inflation. So like the buy one, get one free, that won't be coming in this year, because I think the last thing that people need is for prices to be increasing. But I think we tackle this issue by a range of measures. And you're quite right, education is part of that package.
OK, I'd like to just turn to today's little tiff that appears to be brewing between Sue Gray, the publisher of the, or soon-to-be published report into what went on in Downing Street, the so-called Partygate affairs. Now, it appears, it's been briefed out, that a meeting took place between Sue Gray and the Prime Minister. No one is denying that. During the investigation. However, the Prime Minister's office first briefed that this was at the request of Sue Gray. Sue Gray's office have pushed back and said, absolutely not. Question I put to you, who do we believe, the Prime Minister or Sue Gray?
Well, if the Prime Minister said that, I would believe that that's what happened. However, you know, I've been busy in my constituency. I was at Melksham Rugby Club last night, so I've certainly not as up to date with what exactly happened on this one. And I'm sure that whoever called the meeting will come out in the next few days. However, I would also argue that what I'm hearing from my constituents is about worry about our global fight against inflation, wanting to see that Sue Gray report, of course, our war with the Ukraine, trying to ensure that we are listening to us on whether we're delivering on the manifesto, etc. I'm not sure that who called this meeting will be top of their list of questions.
No, you're right. It won't be. But integrity is at the heart of this, and that's why I'm pressing you as to say, look, and you've sort of intimated you believe the Prime Minister, but then rode back a little bit. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it?
Well, I wasn't there, Nick. No, I wasn't there, so I can't say and give you a cast iron guarantee as to who called this meeting. But I can say that it's not my top concern as to who called the meeting, and I don't think it'll be the top concern concern of my constituents. I think they will want to read the full report, though, of course.
Now, just finally on the same subject, there is a debate that I hope you'll be able to have express some thoughts on this, about whether some ringleaders who are not politicians but would have been at the table of decision making in number 10, who it would appear, again only by reports, I accept, Minister, that Sue Gray wants to publish their names as well. We've had pushback from the FDA and others saying this is not the right thing to do. Clearly, listeners and viewers here are saying in a nutshell, look, those people sitting at the table of decision-making, and they mean the civil servants and special advisors, they should be named if Sue Gray wants to name them as being the ringleaders. Do you agree?
Well, this has always been an independent report led by Sue Gray, and she's not been afraid to be frank with her comments. We saw that in the first report, but there does need to be some conversations about whether to name individuals and a consideration of the seniority of their roles. And I'm sure that those conversations are going on between Sue and the relevant individuals, and the right decision will be made.
OK, Mrs Donelan, University Ministers, and Tory MP for Chippenham, thanks very much indeed for joining me this evening.